I'm incredibly sleep deprived and I couldn't think of anything to do except go to sleep and do this, so now I'm doing this. Malazan tier list, all of the races, except not, because all of the races would be kind of stupid, because then half of this would be just human races and that's kind of boring, so I excluded all of them for brevity's sake, and just be aware, spoilers. Like, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler free as I can. Like, I'm not gonna mention any names, and I keep these as obscure as possible, and I try to keep these in roughly chronological order, so if you come to anything new, you can expect only new from there and just quit the video, or if you haven't read up to, I don't know, Dust of Dreams or something, you can just leave. Thank you. By the way, I'm also only up to Dust of Dreams, but like the whole series is still going on, so I can't be doing anything about all books, because all books don't exist yet. So I might just be doing it now, for fuck's sake. And this is going to be terrible. As I said, I've been awake for like 32 hours now, and yeah, my brain is running on nothing but caffeine. So, let's get this going. I'm going to go along the way and just explain what these mean. I'm only going to include the races' names, and I'm going to rank these based on comparing them to other races and other fantasy books and just media in general, and notable characters as well, although yeah, I'm not going to be naming any of them for spoiler reasons. And I'm also going to explain which races are like bundled together or excluded entirely. So yeah, humans. Humans are decent, they're average, they're the standard fantasy race. At least they're not like one singular race. We have like, this is where I include, of course, Rivi, Daru, Napan, all of these that I can't think of right now. And they are fairly distinct. I would also include Shake in this. I know they have some other stuff mixed in, but eh. And so I would put them at common fantasy stock. They are slightly more interesting because they have some very notable, very cool characters, like... I said I didn't want to mention any names. Oh well, they have a lot of really cool and interesting characters. But for a series this long, this is kind of to be expected, especially since like most of our main characters are humans, I think. I haven't done any comparing. Excuse me. Yeah, this was a great idea to do. So next up is gods and independent beings. So this is basically all gods, elder gods, natural forces, and like everything else that just fits in there, like great ravens, and I probably would put Aligned in here as well. These are pretty good, I think. I like the idea of not just having gods be almighty, although I think no fantasy series really goes that route. But they all have their own genders, they all have their own backstories, weaknesses which are not purely physical, like they have mental weaknesses, they have faults and stuff like that. So I would put them at befittingly average, as a series which in German is titled like the Play of Gods, the Game of Gods. I don't, however they would do that in English. It's to be expected that they're pretty good, and they are pretty good. And like, I'm only putting them this low because this tier list would be pretty boring if I would just put everything above average, because the writing is just that good. Also, you might notice I'm quite biased. Next up, Moranth or Morand. Oh yeah, I'm also going to butcher all these pronunciations because I don't care. Yeah, this is quite clear. There is backstory on them, I know, in later books, but it doesn't make sense. They're insect people. Then I'll get to the good stuff. Tilan Imas, or just Imas, are my second to favorite race overall. They are amazing. They are the best take on zombies I have ever seen in any piece of media, be it film or book, or anime, or short novel, or play, or whatever for that matter. They are incredibly badass. They have really interesting weaknesses, really interesting philosophy behind them. Some of the coolest characters, like probably my singular favorite character, yes, that one, comes from this race, if not from my favorite race. Excuse me. I will not cut that out because I'm just too lazy. By the way, if you want me to make a better version of this, just put it in the comments. If anyone even watches this at all, I'll maybe make one, or I'll delete this one because I'm just ashamed of myself tomorrow. Anyhow, yeah, they're great. Amazing race. Next up, yeah, my favorite race, Yagut. They are, like, I could probably make a whole video about why Yagut are awesome. They are pretty much anti-Oryx, which is a really interesting take. Yeah, like going into why they're so awesome is pretty spoilery territory, but as a race, they did something which is pretty darn amazing. And also, like, I can't think of a singular Yagut I do not like. All of the characters included in the books, which are Yagut, are just awesome. So yeah, I would make a tier just for them, but I'm too lazy. Next up, Tistandi. So yeah, shadow, not shadow, darkness elves. I brewed darkly in the corner. My name's Ebony Darkness to make sure. Anyhow, yeah, there are high dark elves, or a twist on those. In the first few books, I can absolutely understand if you do not like them, because they are relatively cliche, even though they have that one badass going for them. But in later books, especially when you get to know the history of them better, I'm really looking forward to the Karkanas trilogy, by the way, when I'm finished with the main 10 books. Because that's gonna be awesome, I hope. I haven't read it. But yeah, they are pretty good, interesting fantasy race, and you could, as with many of the aspects and storylines in these books, you could just make novels out of them entirely, so they're definitely above average. Next up, demons. I didn't include those in the gods, because in the gods faction, because demons are more or less keeping to themselves and are, if summoned to the mortal world, not really, what's the word for it? They don't have their own free will. They're bound to whoever summoned them, and so I include them in their own subcategory. And they're pretty much just demons. They exist. And also, I read an excerpt from one of the tales of. Okay, I'm gonna butcher these names, aren't I? Bauchlein and Quawal Broach. I don't know. You don't know either. Which was extremely weird. But then again, one of my favorite characters in TTH comes from them. And yeah, I'm going to give them an average for that alone. Then we have oh, this one's going to stir up some controversy. We have Toblakai, which also includes like Yek, Trell, Telomen Toblakai, and Telakai. So like all of the big chunky humanoid races. So we don't have that many characters for them. We do have a lot of establishment of what their race is and what it's supposed to be, which is basically a twist on the whole barbarian thing. But as far as I'm within the books, which is DoD, which is like almost done with the series, fingers crossed, with the main 10 books at least, we only have, I'm not gonna put a number here, but we don't have that many characters for them. However, these two characters are pretty great, and they are pretty good, and yes, there is that one character that many people hate, and I can understand that, but he is great writing. I would hate him in real life, obviously, but he's great writing, so I'm going to put them at above average too. Then we have Kchain, or Kchain, or however they're called. This includes Chemal and Naruk, obviously, because I don't see a reason to distinguish between those two. Yeah, they're lizard people. Hive mind lizard people with... of course, this is getting into like really late territory of the books, and I'm only really getting into them right now, I swear I am. And they just seem interesting enough. They don't seem to have that much of an interesting spin on them. And so I'm just going to put them at adequate, I guess. Not that much of a fan, even though the whole just undead lizards with swords for arms is amazing. Just that as an idea. Then we have... what's next? Who are they supposed to be again? Ah yes, Tisiliusan. Yeah, I don't know that much about them, to be honest, yet, and I don't think I will. This is one of those things, like many of the races, I don't know that much about yet, because I haven't read all of the books yet. I think I'm going to find out, like, Kchain and obviously these people, and these maybe too. But I don't think I will find out that much about Liuzan, which is just how they're written. And the way they're presented thus far is like pretty generic. It's not a bad generic thing, and they do have the interesting thing with like being opposite Tisteandi, basically, more or less. My cleavage is showing. Excuse me. So I'm just gonna put them at common fantasy. Then we have, yeah, shadowy stuff, Tiste Edur, which are an interesting take on Inuit culture, in my opinion, like at least in the beginning of the books. And then, of course, in the beginning when they're introduced, of course. And they have some interesting themes with them, with the other Tiste people. Even though I don't quite understand some of the details yet, but I presume that will come in the Karkanos trilogy as well, or like in the two books I haven't read in the anime series. But I quite like them. They have a lot of very interesting characters, very fleshed out characters, and so they are pretty great. I'm going to put them at above average. So next up, For Cruel Asylum, or Asylum? However they're called. I don't think I will find out that much about them in the main 10 books, because, well, the book Asylum is the thing, and that's their continent as far as I got it. But as far as I am with the books, they seem like a really interesting race. Just from a design standpoint, they are the most uniquely designed race. I really like the idea of them not only having extra joints in their arms and legs, but also in their torso and face. That makes for a really interesting idea for design. I have not yet seen very good fan art of them, sadly, which represents how I picture them, because they're really difficult to depict, obviously. And of course, I don't know that much about personality and stuff yet, but just on design, I would put them on par with Kchain, pretty much, I think. And then lastly, Eres. Yeah, Eres are like the founding race, and there's not that many characters for them either. And also it's not really implied that they're sentient, so that's quite unsure. So, how long have I been doing this? Have I even been taking some? I don't know. I'm just gonna put them at, like, yeah, adequate, probably. So yeah, this is my tier list. This is, of course, a little bit in context. Like, I like every single one of these because they're all great and greatly written. So yeah, let me know what your opinion is about these races. Should I just shut my mouth because I haven't read all the books yet? Should I make another tier list? Do you want me to make more Malazan content? Which I really do. Especially once I'm finished with the main 10 books. I would like to do a tier list for all POV characters, which will like take forever, but whatever. And I would also like to do a chapter by chapter walkthrough on a reread, but that will like take years, so don't expect anything on that. I hope you're all staying good and have a wonderful time.